In this video, we are going to be taking off the door card on our Mercedes 230 SL and replacing the door check spring. Now, what should happen when you open the door is this should be spring loaded, which it is on this side, to stop the door swinging too far open. Now, there's a little spring inside there, and if that spring breaks, what happens is this door will swing further than it should, and this wing here will cut into the door and damage the paintwork, which sadly is exactly what's happened on the other side. So we're going to be taking the door card off and replacing that spring. The spring arrived in the post today, which is Sunday. We only ordered it on Friday, and what also arrived is a new brake cylinder. We did try replacing the seals in the leaking cylinder on this car, but that hasn't worked. It's still leaking, so we're now going to replace the whole cylinder. I won't do that in this video because we've already done a video on that. We're just going to focus on taking the card off and seeing if we can replace that door check mechanism. This is the spring here. It would be fun trying to hook that in place, if indeed it is the spring that's the problem, and that there is the new brake cylinder. You can see the damage that can occur if that door is allowed to swing open and hit that front wing. And we should be able to buff and polish that out, but it'd be a real nightmare if you just had the car repainted and that happened. I've never taken the door panel off one of these, but you can see there's a screw missing there, and that's certainly not the original screw. In here there should be, I believe, a plastic cover that goes on there, and then at the end here we've got two different types of screw, and then down here they've actually, would you believe, riveted this on. Quality bit of workmanship there. We'll start off taking this off. As I say, I believe there's supposed to be a plastic surround that sits inside there. It's missing on this car. This piece of vinyl here just clips off. If you look at that hole there, you undo the back clip first and then you slide it towards here and it should just lift straight off. Another couple of screws to undo up here, or at least one screw. There's one missing. What I will do is then endeavour to replace all of these screws with the proper ones. That will take these two screws out. Once again, one's a Phillips, one's a slotted. We'll put the correct ones in there when we find out what they should be. Now the door card is tucked under here, so I'm gonna just loosen these two screws here. There's one here and one here. Once again, this has been riveted down there, so we may need to drill that rivet out, hopefully not. Just undo these to see if we can unattach that. I'm going to just take this piece of trim here off, just clips in, because that seems to be stopping the door card coming off. We're just using a big flat blade screwdriver, twisting it. Just going to undo these screws here. That should be the last thing holding this in. Once we've got that free, we should, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to film this, but we should be able to wiggle this out. Let's give it a go. Wow, well, we've got this door card off, and that is not a Mercedes door card. In fact, I don't know if you can actually see that. Here it actually says it's got a pay less sticker, so that's just a piece of board that somebody's made up. Now this here is the moisture guard that would normally stop the hardboard getting damp, and we're just very gently going to peel that back because I don't have any more. This is actually not the proper moisture guard. This is just I think the stuff that Mercedes use for putting over seats when they work on a car. Now we can have a closer look. The spring is, where's the spring? Here. So we'll now find out whether that spring has just become detached or whether indeed it's broken. To me it looks like it's broken. We'll take a close look where it actually attaches there and see if we can wiggle that out. There we go. We can see that the end of that spring is broken, and that should attach. I'm not sure which one of those two it attaches to. Probably the first one. So all we need to do now is figure out how to get that spring through that hole. A really useful method of stretching really strong springs like this is to bend the spring like that and then use washers to pack in the gaps. So here we've just got 2 washers in between that spring there, and you can see that's already stretched the spring by 1 millimeter. So we just need a few more washers and that should be enough for this particular job. So with our washers in there, let's see if that gives us enough to get this in, which it looks like it does. It's pretty hard to film that, but what I've done is I've hooked this through here first and then wiggled this around. Now this fitting is actually a little bit loose, so when we've taken those washers out with a little pair of needle nose pliers, what we will do is tighten this fitting up. Okay, with the benefit of hindsight, that spring needs to be in the furthest hole, because if you put it in the nearest hole, it's too loose. You can see this should be, when you take those washers out, it should be pulled tight, and it's not. So I'm going to take it all to pieces and try again. You just take it out of that 17mm bolt, and that allows us to take this whole fitting out. Whether or not we can hook the spring in and then put it back in is of course another question. So we've hooked that from underneath in the second hole, and that's just poking through there. I should be able to get a big screwdriver through there and just pull that through. So we've got that hooked in through there just by wedging a screwdriver under there. That's in the second hole. All we need to do now is see if we can get this bolt in. And now the moment of truth. Does that actually stop the door springing out? Yes, it does. So we can put some grease on here now and put the whole thing back together. And one day when we restore this car, we will be putting all the proper fittings on there, but for the moment we're just going to use a little bit of trim fix adhesive and glue this back on the way it came off. While we've got this door panel off, we're just going to re-stick down all this trim here and clean all of this up and make it look hopefully as good as new again. I don't know if that's original in there, but this here is held onto the door handle with 2 bolts that are really difficult to get to and tighten. It's 9mm bolts just to make it even more awkward. Wow, getting that door card back on when somebody's riveted these bits on was quite a job, but we got there in the end. The last thing we need to do now is put that piece of trim on, and that should just be tapped down with a bit of wood and a mallet. That, I believe, is job done. Well, I say that's job done. The next thing I've noticed is that this piece of trim is coming off here, which is why the door rattles, but we will do that on another day. It entails taking the trim off and re-putting the little grommets in. But as I say, that is a job for another day. We got that spring from the SL shop, just £8.95, and that's the part number there. We also got a replacement wheel cylinder from the SL shop, cost us £58.79 plus VAT, and that's the part number there, 00242 04918.